Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to rise above it. Every time I stepped into the cockpit, I felt fear, the roar of the engines, the endless sky, the unknown stretching far beyond sight. It was all terrifying. But I learned that fear, when understood, becomes your greatest teacher. When I first dreamed of flying, people said it wasn't possible. They said it wasn't a woman's place to defy the clouds. But that didn't matter to me. Because dreams don't belong to a gender or a class or a time in history. They belong to those who dare. I didn't chase flight to prove them wrong. I did it to prove myself right, to show that the human spirit was born to soar. Each flight taught me that fear has a voice, but it doesn't have to make the decisions. If you wait for fear to disappear before you move, you'll wait forever. Fear only dissolves when you act. People often think courage means never doubting, never trembling. But true courage is trembling and flying anyway. It's feeling your heart race and still taking that step into the wind. The sky doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards faith. When I flew across the Atlantic alone, I wasn't fearless. I was focused. I kept my eyes on the horizon, not on the storm. And that's the lesson life teaches all of us. Focus on your vision, not your fear. The most dangerous risk you can take is not flying into the unknown. It's never leaving the ground at all, because the life you want is always on the other side of fear. So trust your wings, even when the wind shakes them. Because the only limits that truly exist are the ones you accept in your mind. People often asked me, Amelia, weren't you ever scared? Of course I was. Every flight carried danger, storms that could swallow you whole, mechanical failures that could end it all. But courage isn't found in denying fear. It's found in flying with it beside you and saying, you will not stop me. When I first took the controls of an airplane, the world felt both enormous and small. Enormous because of what lay ahead. Small because of the limitations others tried to place on me. I refused to be defined by those boundaries. Each time I soared through the sky, I wasn't just flying for myself. I was flying for every person who had ever been told, you can't. The truth is, fear is not the enemy. In fact, fear can be a compass. It points you directly toward the things that matter most. If something scares you deeply, it's often because it carries the power to change you. If a dream makes your heart race, it's the one worth chasing. I've learned that life rewards those who are willing to risk failure in pursuit of purpose. The ground is safe, yes, but it is crowded. The sky, however, belongs to the brave. You see, courage doesn't always look like adventure or applause. Sometimes courage is quiet persistence, the moment you decide to try again after falling short. Sometimes courage is walking away from what no longer serves you, even when comfort calls your name. Every time I flew, I carried one truth in my heart. The only thing worse than fear is regret. Regret for the dreams you never dared to chase. Regret for the wings you never opened. So when fear whispers in your ear, whisper back, watch me fly. When I was a little girl, I didn't dream of being a pilot. I dreamed of freedom. Freedom to explore, freedom to rise, freedom to see how far I could go before the world told me to stop. But dreams that big always come with a cost, fear. When I first saw a plane take off, it wasn't just the machine that moved me. It was the idea of it. A human being, lifted from the earth, trusting nothing but courage and wings. That was the moment I realized something. Fear keeps most people grounded, but curiosity, faith, and determination, they make us fly. People told me it was dangerous. They were right. They told me it was impossible. They were wrong. The sky is not for the fearless. It's for the bold. Every time I looked out from the cockpit window, I felt a kind of calm terror. The kind that reminds you how small you are, yet how limitless you can be. There were times when I almost turned back. The nights were cold, the winds were rough, and the loneliness was heavy. But when fear whispered that I might fall, something deeper whispered back, you were not born to stay on the ground. You see, courage doesn't make fear disappear. It transforms it. It turns fear into focus, doubt into drive, hesitation into movement. When I crossed the Atlantic alone, I didn't just conquer the distance between continents. I conquered the distance between who I was and who I was meant to be. And I want you to understand something. The life you want will always require courage. You don't need to be a pilot to take off. You just need to stop letting fear hold the controls. You can fail, you can fall, but you can also fly. And when you finally rise above everything that once scared you, you'll realize it was never the sky that was the limit. It was your belief. So fly. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart races, because once you do, you'll never look at the ground the same way again.
Fear will always be present when you stand for what's right. But courage is not about the absence of fear. It's about acting despite it. When I spoke to crowds that filled the streets, I knew the danger that awaited. The threats, the hatred, the violence, they were real. But my faith was greater. Faith is what allows us to face the impossible and say, even if I fall, the truth will rise. Courage is a choice, one we make every day when we decide to love instead of hate, to speak instead of stay silent, to move forward instead of hide. Fear tries to whisper that one voice cannot make a difference, but history proves otherwise. One voice filled with truth and conviction can shake nations, can awaken hearts, can rewrite the future. I learned that fear loses its power when your purpose becomes stronger than your pain. When you live for something greater than yourself, justice, equality, love, fear becomes small. The measure of a person is not where they stand in moments of comfort, but where they stand in times of challenge. Anyone can be brave when it's easy, but real courage is standing firm when the world trembles. Even in prison, even under threats, even when the night seemed long, I believed in the dawn. Because the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. So when fear knocks, answer with faith. When doubt shouts, answer with truth. And when hate rises, answer with love. Courage is not only what changes lives, it's what changes the world. Stand firm, speak truth, and never let fear silence your heart. There are moments in every life when fear tries to paralyze the soul. Moments when standing for what is right seems impossible. When speaking the truth comes with a cost. But it is in those moments that courage is born. Courage is not only for heroes in history books. It is for the mother who protects her child, the worker who stands for fairness, the student who speaks up for justice, the dreamer who refuses to surrender. When I marched through the streets of Birmingham and stood before thousands in Washington, D.C., fear was present, but so was purpose. Purpose will always outweigh fear. You must understand, fear cannot be destroyed, but it can be mastered. We master fear when we choose to move forward, even trembling. The greatest enemy of progress is not hate. It is fear. Fear of change, fear of loss, fear of what others might say. But freedom, justice, and love demand courage. I have seen people rise who had every reason to remain silent. I have seen light emerge from the darkest prisons. And I have seen love triumph over fear time and time again. If you live your life trying to avoid discomfort, you will never discover your true strength. Courage is the bridge between who you are and who you are meant to be. Even now, my message remains the same. Do not fear the struggle. Embrace it. Do not hide from the storm. Walk through it. For every step you take in courage, you take a step toward freedom, not only for yourself, but for everyone who will follow. The power to change the world begins when you face your fear and still choose to love. Courage is born when you face the things you cannot change and still decide to stand. I faced fear every day of my life. Fear for my safety, fear for my family, fear for the future. But there was something greater than fear, purpose. I learned that when your purpose is strong, fear cannot control you. When you have faith in something higher, in justice, in truth, in love, you find the strength to keep walking even when the road is dark. Many people believe courage is loud, but often courage is quiet. It's in the person who chooses peace instead of anger. It's in the one who forgives when it would be easier to hate. It's in the heart that keeps loving when the world gives it every reason to close. Courage is not the roar of the crowd. It's the whisper in your soul that says, I will not give up. There were moments when I felt the weight of the world pressing down, when it seemed like every voice against me was louder than the ones beside me. But in those moments, I remembered fear has power only when you give it silence. So I kept speaking, I kept marching, I kept believing. You cannot change the world by waiting for fear to leave you. You change the world by walking through it. And there's a kind of strength that rises only when you have been tested. When the storms come, stand tall. When the night falls, remember, dawn always returns. Fear will tell you to play small. Courage will tell you to stand tall. Fear says, what if I fall? Courage says, what if I fly? When I stood before thousands and said, I have a dream, it wasn't because I had no fear, and it was because I had faith. Faith that love was stronger than hate. Faith that light was stronger than darkness. Faith that truth in the end would rise. And so will you. Whenever you face fear, remember this. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply whispers, try again tomorrow.
I did not set out to be fearless. I set out to learn. Curiosity guided me into laboratories filled with danger and possibility, places where discovery demanded risk. When I began my research, few believed a woman could make a scientific breakthrough, but I wasn't concerned with what others believed. I was concerned with what was true. Every great discovery carries uncertainty. Every experiment carries risk. But progress is born only when someone is brave enough to explore the unknown. Courage, in science and in life, is the willingness to question what everyone else accepts. It is the strength to follow curiosity, even when the path is dark. When Pierre and I discovered radium, we had no roadmap. We only had determination. There were nights of exhaustion, failures that seemed endless, and dangers we couldn't fully see, yet we persisted. Because fear is not a reason to stop. It is a reminder that you are doing something meaningful. Every light that has ever illuminated the world was born from someone who refused to surrender to fear. Courage is quiet. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the soft voice that says, try again tomorrow. It's the scientist who keeps testing, the artist who keeps creating, the dreamer who keeps believing. I learned that to live without risk is to live without discovery. Fear protects you, but it also confines you. Courage frees you, not from danger, but from limitation. So do not wait until you feel brave. Act with purpose, act with curiosity, and courage will meet you there. Because every time you face your fear, you expand the boundaries of what is possible for yourself and for humanity. Fear is a shadow that follows every explorer, every creator, every dreamer. I knew fear intimately, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of danger. But curiosity, once awakened, becomes stronger than fear. When I worked late into the night, surrounded by faint glowing substances that no one fully understood, the air was thick with risk, yet I pressed on because the desire to know, to discover, to contribute was greater than any hesitation. Every new discovery is born from uncertainty. The moment before success always looks like chaos, but courage transforms uncertainty into progress. There were many who doubted me, not because the work was impossible, but because I was a woman doing it. That doubt became my fuel. It is remarkable how much strength you gain when others expect you to fail. Courage is not loud. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's the stillness of a mind that says, I will continue. You will fail, perhaps many times. I did too. But failure is never the end. It is the beginning of understanding. The key is not to let fear of failure become fear of trying. I discovered that fear itself is a kind of radiation, invisible, powerful, but manageable when you understand it. It can harm you if you let it consume you, but it can also drive you to seek the light beyond it. What I want you to know is this: Bravery and brilliance are not gifts. They are choices. Each time you choose to move forward, to learn, to create, to love, you strengthen the light within you. Courage is not reserved for scientists or leaders or pioneers. Courage lives in anyone who refuses to let fear dictate their life. And when you rise above fear, you do more than change your destiny. You inspire others to rise too. Fear and curiosity, they are both invisible forces, but only one can move you forward. When I began my work, I didn't have wealth, connections, or approval. I had questions, and questions are more powerful than fear. Science, much like life, requires courage. Every discovery begins with doubt. Every breakthrough begins with a risk. You cannot find light unless you are willing to walk into the dark. When my husband and I discovered radium, we didn't fully understand its power. We only knew it could change everything. We worked tirelessly, despite exhaustion, poverty, and illness, because discovery was worth the danger. Courage, you see, is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep searching even when the result is unknown. To believe that the effort, not the outcome, gives meaning to the journey. There were many times I failed, many times I questioned whether the world would ever see the value of what we were doing. But courage whispered, "Continue." And I did. That whisper, that quiet resolve, is what changes everything. True courage does not need recognition. It does not seek applause or comfort. It is the scientist who works through the night, the artist who paints through tears, the soul who loves again after being broken. Courage is the act of living fully, even when you are afraid. And in every act of courage there is discovery, not just of the world, but of yourself. The bravest thing you can ever do is to keep going. Keep believing that your work, your life, your love, all of it matters, because it does. When I first began my work, I did not think of fame, nor recognition, nor history. I thought only of curiosity, that quiet voice within that asks, why? But curiosity has a twin, fear. The fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of stepping into a darkness where no one has walked before. And yet, that is where discovery lives. When I arrived in Paris, I had almost nothing, no wealth, no reputation, no promises, only determination and an unshakable desire to understand the hidden laws of nature. Many nights I worked in a cold, dim laboratory, surrounded by instruments that barely functioned, notebooks filled with calculations and doubts. The roof leaked when it rained, and the air smelled of chemicals and exhaustion. But in that space, in that silence, I felt alive. Because every experiment, every failure was a step closer to truth. You see, courage is not grand or loud. It is often quiet, persistent, and unseen. Courage is what keeps you standing when no one believes in your work. It's what keeps your heart steady when your hands are trembling. It's what whispers, "Continue," even when the world tells you to stop. People often say I discovered radium, but what I truly discovered was myself, my ability to endure, to persist, to rise above fear. Science taught me that the unknown is not something to avoid, it is something to explore. Each risk, each obstacle, each unanswered question, it shapes who you become. There were moments when I doubted everything, when the exhaustion was so deep that my body ached for rest, but my mind refused to stop. There were nights when the glow of radium was the only light in the room, faint, mysterious, almost alive. I often wondered if that glow was a reflection of something inside me, something that would not surrender. Fear visited often, fear of failure, fear of danger, fear of ridicule. But fear never stayed long, because curiosity was stronger. I did not chase success, I chased understanding, and in that pursuit I found meaning. The world around me was not kind to women in science. I faced disbelief, skepticism, and sometimes outright dismissal. But I learned that the laws of nature do not care about opinion. They reveal themselves only to those who seek them with courage. You must not let the fear of rejection silence your voice. You must not let the fear of the unknown keep you from discovery, because every time you dare to step forward, the world moves with you. I have failed countless times, but I do not call them failures. They are experiments, each one teaching me something vital. If an experiment did not succeed, I adjusted. If a result was unclear, I studied deeper. This is life itself, a series of experiments. Courage is not in avoiding mistakes. It is in learning from them until you find the truth. People often ask me how I managed to continue despite the challenges. My answer is simple. I believed in the purpose of my work. Purpose gives strength where fear steals it. Purpose reminds you that what you do matters, even if no one else sees it yet. To those who face fear today, whether it is fear of failure, loss, judgment, or the unknown, I tell you this: do not wait for fear to vanish. It will always be there, whispering, warning, holding you back. But courage is the choice to move forward anyway. It is the fire that burns quietly, steadily, even in the coldest nights. There is beauty in risk, and there is discovery in struggle. When you walk through fear, you find yourself on the other side, wiser, stronger, freer. My life was not easy. I lost my husband, faced illness, and worked in conditions that endangered my health. But through it all, I never allowed pain to define me. I turned it into purpose, because what endures after fear fades. What remains when hardship ends is the light of what you've discovered, the legacy of what you've built. I learned that real courage is not found in grand gestures or dramatic battles. It is in the quiet persistence of the human spirit. It is in the one who studies late into the night, in the one who rebuilds after loss, in the one who dreams again after failure. That is the courage that changes the world. Not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Not the guarantee of success, but the decision to try again and again and again. And perhaps that is what the glow of radium truly symbolizes. Not danger, not brilliance alone, but hope. Hope that even in the darkest places, light can be created. Hope that even in struggle, something beautiful can emerge. So when fear visits you, as it surely will, welcome it, acknowledge it, but do not obey it. Let curiosity lead you forward. Let purpose keep you steady, and let courage, that quiet flame within you, burn bright enough to guide your way. Because discovery, whether in science, art, or life, always begins with a brave heart, and that heart lives within you.